Right now, the US and Iran are sending two completely opposite signals. I mean, on one hand, you're hearing whispers of peace, that this whole thing is almost over. But on the other hand, the military and economic pressure is cranking up to a boiling point. So what is really going on? So this is the official story you're hearing. You've got President Trump saying very clearly that a deal is right around the corner, and this conflict is basically about to end. It's a message that's definitely designed to calm everyone's nerves, but does it actually match the reality on the ground? Because then you've got this. While the diplomats are talking peace, the U.S. military has gone and launched a full-scale naval blockade on all of Iran's ports. And let's be really clear about this. This isn't some warning shot. No, this is a major, major military move. And the goal here is pretty severe: to completely choke off Iran's ability to trade by sea. We're talking about all the imports and exports that its economy desperately needs to survive. And it's especially aimed at that oil pipeline to China, the country that buys over 90% of Iran's oil. This is the very definition of a maximum pressure campaign. Okay, so what does this American blockade actually look like? And just how much heat is it really putting on Tehran?
Well, what's kind of wild about a modern blockade like this one is that there's no fixed line on a map. U.S. Central Command can basically intercept ships almost anywhere out in international waters. That gives the U.S. an incredible amount of flexibility, and it makes it nearly impossible for any ship to just slip through.
And the economic impact, it's just staggering. Analysts figure that a successful blockade would cost the Iranian regime something like $435 million a day. That's not a weekly or monthly number. That's what they'd lose every single day that trade is shut down. So as you can imagine, this incredible pressure is forcing Iran into a really tight corner. It leaves the leadership in Tehran with a set of very limited and very, very high-stakes choices. Essentially, Iran's looking at 4 possible paths forward. And honestly, none of them are good. Option 1, they could just give in and accept a deal on America's terms. 2, they could try to run the blockade, which, let's be real, would almost certainly start a direct fight at sea. 3, they could escalate everything and widen the conflict. Or 4, they could just pause, stop their own shipping to try and de-escalate. But with only about 13 days of oil storage on land, that clock would be ticking and fast. In that third option, widening the war, that is a very real threat. An advisor to Iran's supreme leader has already warned that they're ready to open new fronts. And pretty much everyone sees this as a threat to activate their proxy forces. We're already seeing reports that Iran is leaning on Houthi rebels in Yemen to threaten the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a critical choke point for global shipping heading to Europe. But amid all this rising tension, there is a potential off-ramp. A very fragile diplomatic process is still flickering in the background, offering a possible escape from the brink. And we're seeing some actual signs of hope here. There are reports that a new round of talks could happen in Islamabad, with Pakistan trying to mediate. Apparently, both sides are keeping their calendars open later this week, which, tells you that even with the blockade, the lines of communication aren't totally dead. But, and this is a huge but, even if they manage to get in the same room, the gap they have to close is just massive. I mean, take the main issue, Iran's nuclear program. The U.S. is demanding a complete 20-year stop to all uranium enrichment. Iran has offered a concession, a pause, but for only up to 5 years. The two sides are just worlds apart. And it is so crucial to remember that this standoff isn't happening in a vacuum. It's deeply tangled up with all these other regional conflicts, especially the escalating violence on the Israel-Lebanon border. And speaking of diplomacy, something truly historic just went down. For the first time in over 30 decades, officials from Lebanon and Israel, two countries that are technically still at war, actually met for direct talks in Washington. I mean, that's an unprecedented attempt to cool things down on that front. But of course, not everyone wants those talks to succeed. Just hours before that meeting was supposed to start, Iran's key ally, Hezbollah, dramatically cranked up its rocket attacks on northern Israel. It was a clear and very violent message: they reject any kind of diplomatic deal with Israel. So when you pull all of these different threads together, the blockade, the fragile talks, the proxy wars, you get to the bottom line. And the stakes here, they aren't just regional, they are absolutely global. And that is not an exaggeration. The International Monetary Fund, the IMF, has issued a really stark warning. If this conflict boils over and disrupts the energy markets, it could be enough to tip the entire global economy into recession. That's what's on the line right now. Which leaves us right here with the ultimate question. You've got military pressure at its absolute peak and a diplomatic process that could shatter at any moment. So is this tense, fragile pause a real pathway to peace? Or is it just the calm before a much, much wider storm?